If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. This is Katherine Hansen, and I'm so glad you're here today. I apologize for my voice. I'm a little congested, but I hope that you can hear me okay. In this episode, Brain Over Binge Coach Julie and I are going to talk about component 5 in the 5 components of dismissing urges to binge. If you're new here and new to the Brain Over Binge approach, you can learn more about these 5 components by listening to episodes 4 through 8, and I'll include those in the show description. And in those episodes, I go through each of the 5 components. These components are about learning to see your urges in a new way so that you can stop reacting to them and stop acting on them. And the 5th step of celebrating is to help solidify the changes in your brain. Celebrating really should be the fun and easy part of having success, but I find that that's often not the case for a lot of people. You may find it to be very challenging to acknowledge your progress and give yourself credit for the positive steps you are taking. Also, it's common for the brain to produce negative thoughts that interfere with your ability to celebrate your success. Coach Julie has some great advice to help you with this that has stemmed from her own experience and from her coaching. So today, both of us are going to share ideas that we believe will help you overcome any problems you have with component 5 so that you can make celebration work for you. Hi, Julie. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hi, Katherine. It's so nice to be back.
Yes, for sure. And today we're going to talk about celebrating without conditions. And this is something that I know is really important to you and a big part of how you coach. So can you kind of introduce what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. I know you talk about it a lot. You've talked about it in your audio course. You talk about it in your books. Celebration is the 5th step in the Brain Over Binge approach. And I emphasize it, talk about it all the time in my coaching. It's absolutely essential. It is not optional. I am a huge proponent of celebration for many, many reasons. But what I really wanted to talk about today is this idea that I've created about celebrating without condition. So no disclaimers, no qualifiers, no conditions at all. Celebrating anything and everything that's going right in your journey to healing, in your journey of recovery, without exception. So I'd love to go into more detail about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love this additional idea you bring to it, the celebrating without conditions, because yeah, it's great to tell somebody to celebrate, but the brain is always going to say, okay, you did that right, but you did this wrong. It's always going to find a reason that you're not doing good enough. So yeah, just definitely go into more detail about what you mean by without conditions.
Okay, great. Fantastic. And I love that point that you brought up. You're absolutely right. We have a negativity bias of the brain. Our amygdalas are always scanning for danger. And so, yes, the brain is always going to say, yeah, okay, you ate adequately and you expected and allow an urge, but yesterday you didn't. The brain is always going to do that. And so what I love to challenge my clients and everybody listening to do is to practice celebrating and putting a period at the end of the sentence. I ate adequately. I expected to allow urges. Go me. I did it. Period. Or exclamation point. But that's it. No disclaimers. No talking about what you ate yesterday or how long it's taking you to get here or what might happen later or what you did later or what happened the next day. None of that. And I assure everyone listening that it will be very uncomfortable at first. You are going to want to say, yeah, but you are going to want to tell me all the disclaimers and all the things that are wrong with your choices and how it wasn't a perfect meal or you ate a little bit too much or I don't know what. There's going to be a yeah, but, and it's about not saying anything. Just take the win with your whole heart. And in doing that, There's so many benefits. I mean, first of all, you're rewiring your brain, you're overriding the negativity bias, you're reinforcing what you want for yourself. So that's all great. The other thing though is you're embracing discomfort, which is the same thing you need to be able to do when you expect and allow an urge. And the other thing that I want to say also about when we celebrate with conditions, when we celebrate and we say, yeah, but, or when we start off the win with all the reasons why it's not really a great win. Like I hear that all the time. Well, I'm going to celebrate this, but it's not really a win because I kind of did blew it after, like people love to do that. And that's just a sneaky way of beating yourself up all over again. And I need to say very emphatically that we've done enough beating ourselves up for a lifetime. It's enough. It's not serving you. And if it had, you'd be free already. If beating ourselves into change had worked, you'd be there already.
Yeah, that's such a great point because I know I did that. I know you did that as far as thinking that if you criticize yourself enough and beat yourself up enough and say all the yeah buts in the world, that would help you, but it doesn't, and just practicing putting a period at the end of that sentence of what you did well. I think that's so powerful. And yeah, your brain might produce those kind of automatic thoughts, but you just kind of allow them to be there. Like you said, it will be uncomfortable, but the more you practice putting a period at the end of that sentence of celebration, the more that will become second nature and the more you can really savor your success.
Exactly. It's a no matter what. Nothing is too small to celebrate. It's very funny to me because nobody holds back from beating themselves up. Everybody is very exuberant. Me too. I lump myself into that. Everybody in this journey is very exuberant about beating themselves up and rehashing over and over and over again in minute details, everything that they think they've done wrong. I did it all the time, replaying it, rehearsing it, watching it over and over again in their mind. And you know what happens? You get more of that because we get whatever we rehearse over and over and over again. And the truth is that, yes, it's uncomfortable to celebrate and put a period at the end of the sentence, but it's far more comfortable to do that than it is to live in that place of constantly beating yourself up and constantly looking for what you've done wrong.
Yeah, for sure. And this is just a thought that I had is that part of this, yeah, but mindset that we kind of all have. I think it's a very universal tendency. I think part of it is about like protecting ourselves from disappointment or trying to protect ourselves because we think if we think negatively, then when the bad thing happens, we'll expect it and we won't be as sad or we won't be as disappointed in ourselves. But it really just doesn't work. I mean, like the more I kind of set myself up to fail, the more I thought negatively, like, oh, I really can't do it. The more I said, yeah, but I thought that would kind of help protect me, but I was still just as disappointed when the bad thing happened. It doesn't help at all. I think that's just an illusion.
That's so true. It doesn't help at all. It doesn't protect us at all. And also, we're more likely to do the thing that we're afraid of doing because we're visualizing that in such great detail in our brain. And as I have spoken about on prior podcasts, like future self, when you go there in your mind, you go there in your life. And when you rehash and replay every detail of what you don't want, that is what you get. So what I am advocating for here, everybody listening, is visualize in great detail everything about any little tiny thing you've done right. Replay it. Tell as many people as possible. Write about it in great detail. Savor every aspect of it that you loved, even if it was 30 seconds of peace and freedom that you experienced. Savor and celebrate that in all its glory. Shout it from the rooftops. You cannot celebrate enough. I ring a bell. I jump up and down. I am very exuberant. That's not everybody's style. I know, Catherine, you're a lot more low key than me. But the point is, we want to reinforce what we want for ourselves. I always say, bathe your brain in what you want for yourself, because that is what you will get more of.
And I love that you brought up kind of ways you can celebrate and ways different people celebrate in different ways based on their style and personality and what feels good to them. And you mentioned, jumping up and down, ringing a bell like you do, and just praising yourself, savoring the good feelings. What are kind of some other ways? I mean, I definitely have some ideas I can add, but what ways do you find like people in the group celebrate?
Yeah, there are so many ways to celebrate. So first of all, talk about it with anybody who's open to it. If there are people in your life who know what you're doing, talk to them about it. I did it. Go me. And the other thing is that BJ Fogg, who wrote Tiny Habits, he calls it Shine, talks about the importance of doing it in the moment. So he's a neuroscientist at Stanford, and all of his work is around habit change. That's all of his research. And that's the neural superglue. So the moment that you allow an urge, you can even silently to yourself just say, woo, I did it. Go me. It could be very low key. Or you can go in the bathroom and high five yourself in the mirror or do a fist bump, whatever. Or you can do a little dance. Or lots of people in my group, and people are familiar with this, you can create an urge jar. So some kind of glass jar, and into it, every time you have an urge and you let it move through you, drop a bead in a jar or a pebble or a paper clip or anything you want. And you could have a cover for the jar and shake it like a maraca if you want to. Another thing I love for people to do is to keep a journal of every time you allow an urge, writing down, because I allowed an urge or because I didn't binge today, I get these non-weight benefits immediately, and write them down and really savor them. Get so clear on all of those benefits. And then, of course, if you're in the group, we have celebration threads where everybody writes down the things that they're celebrating, and we all celebrate each other. And at the start of every coaching call, I ask for wins and I celebrate you and we all celebrate you. Again, nothing is too small to celebrate, and you can't over celebrate.
Yeah. And especially because it feels good, right? And who doesn't want to feel good during this journey of habit change? And I would also add that the good feelings from your success, they come up naturally. You will feel good when you eat an adequate meal, when you dismiss an urge. You will have natural excitement for your success. Yes, of course, there'll be that sort of negative thoughts on the other side, but I want you to notice the natural feelings of excitement that come up, and just noticing them and savoring them, like the feelings that you don't have to generate yourself, that just automatically appear. When you notice them, I think it solidifies them. And that in and of itself is kind of a subtle form of celebration as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Notice the natural feelings that arise. And, getting back to a podcast we did a while ago on, neuroplasticity and taking in the good. The thing is that when something positive happens in your life, feeling good is expansive. So when you notice that you feel well because you ate adequately, because you're not binging, when you notice that and you savor it and you celebrate it, it's expansive. It opens you up. Just notice how that feels in your body and really stay with it. Have it and enjoy it for 30 seconds, 6 times a day. You remember that was the magic equation that I mentioned in that podcast. But that's the truth of it. When we want to change the negativity bias of the brain, that takes overt practice. It's not going to happen automatically. And so when those good feelings arrive, have them and enjoy them. Notice, this is a good feeling. I'm feeling it in my body. My heart feels open. I'm breathing more easily. I trust myself more. My digestion feels better. I have better energy. What is it? Just sink into it and savor it.
Yeah, and I'll link that podcast episode in the show description. It was called Taking in the Good. I don't remember exactly the number, but that will be in the show description, because it's so important. Because a lot of things in recovery, you'll have both positive feelings about and negative feelings about, and the brain will kind of push you to focus on the negative. You have to actively push yourself to notice the positive, and the more you do, the more that grows.
Exactly.
I want to add here that we've kind of talked about celebrating in the moment, which is super important, but there's also some ways I think you can celebrate on a more long-term basis. Like you can give yourself rewards for not binging, in non-food ways. Like some people like to save up the money they would have spent on binging and really treat themselves to something like a trip or a new outfit or something like that, or use the time they would have spent binging to do things that are really important to them. So those are kind of some ways you can celebrate long-term, but also in the moment is super important as well.
Absolutely.
So we've kind of talked a lot about how to celebrate. And as you work with people in the Brain Over Binge group and one-on-one clients, I also want to address what people celebrate. We've talked about eating adequately and dismissing urges kind of generally, but what are some of maybe the smaller things to celebrate in recovery?
Absolutely. And again, I'm going to say they're not small. Everything is worth celebrating. And even though people think it's small, it's not small. We've talked about the compound effect before. And it's like, if you imagine you're taking a penny and every single time you have a win, and you celebrate it, you're dropping it in a jar, and then they build and they build and they build over time. And all of a sudden you have a million pennies. It's just, so nothing is too small to celebrate. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is there are all kinds of things to celebrate. So yes, obviously celebrate eating adequately. Absolutely. Every time you eat an adequate meal, celebrate that. Celebrate every time you have an urge and let it move through you. Amazing. Celebrate every time you have an uncomfortable emotion and you let yourself feel it. Celebrate that. Celebrate every time you celebrate without condition. I mean it, because it is uncomfortable at first to reverse those patterns. Celebrate every time you have a non-weight benefit that you didn't think of before. Notice it, savor it. These are all the kinds of things that people celebrate in the group constantly. Celebrate every time you make a choice in a way that helps you to manage your stress or deal with a situation in your life. Everything that you notice that you're doing differently as you're entering into recovery, even just considering, I thought about eating and then I decided to put on a meditation instead. Anything that you do, celebrate it. Because again, we're so good. Everybody can tell me in minute detail about everything they think they're doing wrong. I start every call with every client, every group call with wins, what's going right. And people struggle there so much because we're so good at rehearsing what we don't want. And that is part of how our brains are wired. So no judgment there. I do it too. We all do it. But it's very overt to override that negativity bias. So nothing is too small to celebrate. And the more you do it, the better you get at it and the more comfortable it feels. And as I said at the start of the call, when you allow the discomfort of celebration without condition, you're practicing being able to allow the discomfort of an urge without acting on it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like all of this is super helpful because I think one of the hesitations people have to celebrating is that it's eating. And we think, we should be able to do that. It shouldn't be such a big deal. Like, I shouldn't celebrate me eating a meal. Like, that's not a big deal. But gosh, it is. Like, you are trying to get back to normal. You're trying to decondition these patterns. So really allow yourself this. Sure, you won't be celebrating eating a meal, 5 years from now after this habit is long gone. But right now, it's so important to solidify those new behaviors.
I couldn't agree more. And I want to add one other thing here, which is that in the way that I coach, I say you need to eat adequately in order to be able to expect and allow urges and then celebrate. So eating adequately is top of the pile for me. When you eat adequately, which is uncomfortable for people, you should be celebrating because it is uncomfortable for people who have a history of restriction. That's another thing people celebrate is imperfect eating. I ate imperfectly and then I didn't say I blew it. I might as well binge, right? When you eat adequately, then you have the resources and the ability to expect and allow urges and then celebrate. It all flows so beautifully from there. So eating adequately is top of the pile and the biggest thing to celebrate.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point to end on. And this has all been very helpful, Julie.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So go you, everybody listening, before you stop listening, think about something that's going right and celebrate it. And I right now am going to ring my bell for you. Woohoo!
Thank you so much, Julie. I look forward to having you back again soon. I hope you got a lot out of this conversation. I love Julie's energy, and I hope you're able to channel some of that into your own celebrations. And remember, there are so many ways you can celebrate, and you can determine what feels right for you. If you want more help and encouragement from Coach Julie, she is going to offer a free coaching call tomorrow on Zoom. So if you're listening at the time this episode is released, that's Saturday, February 25th, and the call will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link to join that free Zoom call is in the show description, so just click that link at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I hope you're able to join so that you can get your questions answered about maybe this topic or anything else you're dealing with as you let go of binge eating. Or if you're ready to join the Brain Over Binge group now, you can do that at brainoverbinge.com/group. You can also book a one-on-one session with Coach Julie at brainoverbinge.com/1-on-1-coaching. And those links will also be in the show description. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.